This is a recap of England 3, Latvia 0, our first ever game against the nation that gave us Marianne Pahar's ends in victory. And a good start to the World Cup qualifying campaign for England, a winning start to the Thomas Tuchel era. 2 players scored their first goal for England and 1 scored his 70th. I'm Ali Maxwell, Dave Walker's here too. Evening, Dave.
Evening. How are you feeling after that game? We tried to sum it up with one word, didn't we, on the last episode? I don't think we need to go down that route again. I think it's restrictive. But I'd like to know how you're feeling after. I think another. There was fun to be had this evening. I think, if not completely amazing.
I agree. There was fun to be had. I do believe that there is an extra intensity to England's play in possession and out of possession. I don't think it is, blinding. I don't think it is completely scintillating. I'm not going to go that far. But I do think over the course of 2 matches, we are getting used to a new rhythm, a new drumbeat, if you like. And it is a more exciting drumbeat. So I am more excited on the whole. That's not to say I sat and watched this game, dancing around the living room with glee. As you say, there were some frustrating elements of the performance as well, in particular England's final ball. And maybe it's reductive and simplistic to say, but had England's final ball been 50% better, this could have been 5 or 6-0 rather than the 3-0 that it was. But overall, I'm pretty happy, and overall, I'm enjoying the Thomas Tuchel era. There's no doubt about that, for a number of different reasons, but partly because, Dave, we get to talk about England's tactics in a way that feels fresh and exciting, and that was the case again tonight, where things were very different to how they looked in possession and in build-up against Albania on Friday.
Yeah, I think the most obviously notable thing from the start of the match was that Lewis Skelly was playing as inverted as you can get as a fullback. He was playing centre of the pitch, right next to Declan Rice, and he remained there for the duration of his time on the pitch tonight, which meant that Gahey sort of found himself often in the sort of left-ish fullback space on the ball, not really having to do much defending apart from one little moment, which we'll talk about later. The wingers stayed really wide. Rashford and Bowen hugged the touchline, were getting the ball high and wide. Rodgers and Bellingham, before the match, we were probably thinking that Bellingham was going to be in the 2 next to Rice, maybe be a bit deeper, but that didn't really seem to be the case. They were kind of playing. Would you call it as sort of dual number 10s? Or
yeah,
they were certainly floating around a bit. Rodgers a bit more to the right, Bellingham a bit more all over the place, wherever he wanted to go, really. But it was a different challenge tonight, I think, even though it was another team who wanted to defend. Even though, weirdly, Latvia probably should have scored tonight and did have, on balance, a better chance than Albania managed to fashion last week. They were obviously worse than Albania. There wasn't really much for us to worry about. They were only ever going to score tonight if we made a bad mistake, which we nearly did. And they were just defending so deep, and they looked knackered quite early on, and they were just throwing themselves in front of everything. And at one point, I think I was counting the number of defenders in a row in the box, and there was a back 7. There was a flat back 7 at one point. And I think that super deep block and super nervous, panicked defending from them, combined with what we were with our approach, which was clearly on instructions from Tuchel to be quicker, to be faster, to try and make things happen quicker than we did against Albania, did mean that we saw quite a lot of panicked, chaotic, sort of just chucking the ball in the box, shots, just swiping at the ball, and they were cannoning around the penalty area. So it was sort of quite chaotic at times tonight.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it felt almost pointed that in the first few minutes, Jared Bowen got on the ball, having started on the right instead of Phil Foden, and immediately dribbled inside and tried to beat his man. He lost the ball. He asked for a foul. It wasn't given, but he'd set his stall out early. He was going to follow his manager's instructions at all costs. Then Rashford got the ball. The defender was already really tight to him, but he still tried to meg him with his first touch and get round him. He lost the ball as well. But again, the kind of... Yeah, they set out their stall. And again, it feels like the wide players are a big talking point for England. You know, they were almost even more in the spotlight tonight because they had more visible opportunities to get at their fullback than they did against Albania. That's in part because of the tactical switch. Skelly playing inside, flooding the centre of the pitch with your centre-backs, with Rice and Lewis Skelly, with the Bellingham and Rodgers, who, as you say, dual number 10s. I think Tuchel's language would be Bellingham in the left half position and Rodgers in the right half position. What it means is, you absolutely flood the middle of the pitch, and it opens up the passing lanes out wide because Latvia have to make sure that you can't get anything through the middle with all those dangerous players in those high tariff areas, those most dangerous areas of the pitch. And although it's not comfortable for a defence to know that there's going to be tons of 1v1 situations out wide, it's the lesser of two evils. And frankly, the wide players again didn't really produce the goods with their final ball, particularly Rashford, who got on the ball so much, who, either got a little bit confused with his dribbling and didn't quite get past his man as he was intending to, and sometimes on the occasions where he did, the cross wasn't great. He was mixing things up with his delivery.
11 crosses tonight, but only 3 accurate according to SofaScore.
And what's interesting is he tries loads of different types of cross. None of them worked. He tries like hard and low with his left foot, and that gets cut out. He tries like a powerful in-swinger on his right foot, and that gets headed away by the first man. He sometimes tries a bit more finesse and a bit more clipped curl, and then that doesn't find its target either. So he's definitely a talking point, Dave, because I'm trying to work out whether we can take positive from his performances. Tuchel having been so explicit about why he wanted Rashford in the squad, essentially to give him confidence so that Rashford can be peak Rashford, which is what Tuchel wants on the left of England's attack. But has he shown that he is back at that level, or the level that we sort of hoped that he could get to?
I don't think he's looked out of place. He hasn't looked off it like a lot of the players. It's difficult. He would rather have space to run into, I think, wouldn't he? And to really show his best and to hit teams on the counter and really put them to the sword with his pace and his decisiveness. Him sort of being on the ball and going one way and going the other, trying to get a cross in, which he's capable of doing, but as you've just said, it's perhaps not his absolute best attribute.
Is it almost overthinking it sometimes, it looks like?
Yeah, sometimes, but I think it's a massive positive for him that he started 2 games for England. Phil Foden was dropped or benched, or however you want to call it. Didn't start both the games across this camp, but Rashford has started both, which is the first time that's happened in a long time. So if the goal for Marcus Rashford from Thomas Tuchel this camp was to give him confidence, I think that's probably been achieved.
And it is, look, it's people might not agree with this, but that role, what they're being asked to do, Bowen and Rashford, Foden and Rashford, it's quite demanding. Like, relentlessly having to dribble and beat your man in a, ideally going either way, mixing it up and providing good quality delivery with, as you say, sometimes 7 or 8 defenders inside the box waiting to cut out your cross or block it. It's not an easy thing, but it's so visible when it goes wrong that you end up being the ones that are standing out, either for good reasons or in this case maybe for less good reasons. It was a big feature of the game, just a lot of bad crossing. As you said, Rashford's stats weren't good, but I mean we attempted 35 crosses tonight, whereas we only attempted 14 against Albania. We only completed 11 tonight, so less than a third. Against Albania, it was 6 of 14, so way more crossing. I think partly because of the setup, and I'm sure that was by design for Tuchel. Didn't necessarily have the desired effect in terms of the quality of chances that were created from those situations, but it's not out of the question that with some better delivery, we do score some more, and we probably think that it's a genius tactic. I mean, he's so active, isn't he, Tuchel, because he swapped the wingers at half-time as well, and my perception of that, Dave, was that Rashford and Bowen were getting on the ball so much, it wasn't working them cutting in and trying to cross on their stronger foot, having cut in. So he thought, okay, let's just make it simple for them and get them on their stronger foot down the outside and deliver crosses, and that didn't massively work either.
No, it didn't. I felt a bit sorry for Jarrod Bowen because he gets a start, and I think he must be quite frustrated at times when playing for England, because he is the sort of player that needs a few games and a few really strong performances to sort of cement himself as a viable England starter when it comes around to tournaments. But he's kind of I think he's sort of unlikely to get those performances in the sorts of games that he gets given starts in, because it's a game against Latvia that he's more likely to start in, I think, than against, say, if we were in the Nations League and we were playing a really strong team, or we were in a tournament. He and Rashford and like Morgan Rogers as well, really, they're like good counter-attacking players that have had good moments in the Premier League when their teams are defending and then breaking at pace. And he gets this start, and he's just in that right wing spot the whole game, just trying to jink his way around a player, put a cross in, do a little 1-2, and it must be quite annoying if you're Jared Bowen. I think you go home and you think you're annoyed. I think you might feel that people think you're not good enough for England, but you probably think I definitely am. But just give me another 20 yards to run into.
Well, yeah, the role that he played tonight, in my opinion, just isn't what he's made his name doing. It's not his strongest role on the pitch. Yes, he plays off the right of the attack and has done for West Ham for the most part, but it's in, as you say, it's in a very different way, not least because it's more counter-attacking and less to do with control possession, where you have to basically dribble past your man to create something. But also, I just see Bowen's main strength as being a goal scorer, like
finisher,
a brilliant finisher with brilliant movement. And so in a match like tonight, again, if I was Jared Bowen, I could choose my position, I'd probably prefer to just play as a number 9 in a game like today and just drift around and sniff out chances and take them, which is what he's brilliant at. So I agree. I don't think that is necessarily a role that suits him massively. Of course, with Saka and Palmer out, it's fairly elementary, isn't it, the discussion, because Bowen won't start many games for England if everyone's fit. And it's worth pointing out that had Gordon not been injured against Albania, he may well have started tonight in Rashford's place, and who knows whether his performances 1v1 and with his delivery would have been better or not. Big jump up in terms of attacking stats compared to the Albania game. Not a surprise, given that the level of opposition was much lower. But 27 shots to 12, 8 on target to 6, 3.5 XG compared to 1.5 XG. So there was just a lot of goalmouth action, a lot of final third action. And eventually, a bit like we huffed and puffed in the first 20 minutes against Albania, and then our goal comes from the left back breaking in behind and getting our first shot on goal in that game. In this instance, Dave, we go 1-0 up from, an unbelievable free kick that kind of unlocks things for us when we were struggling to do so from open play. Yeah,
it was great. Really, really good free kick. Sometimes you see free kicks and you see them on the first angle and they've gone in. You think, oh, wow, that looks good. But let's just wait and see what the replay's like. Is it a bad mistake from the keeper? Is there a sneaky deflection? This one was like, wow, this has bent so far outside the post and gone right in the top corner, maybe even just like the merest of brushes of the post as it went in, and it was lovely. Really good, nice moment for James. The fact that he's played 90 minutes today and came on the other day and trained as well and not got injured is surely the big positive for him. But the fact that he scored, despite his neutral demeanour after he popped that one in, he's got to be really happy with his week.
Which he explained to Gabriel Clark in the post-match interview as, I was just a bit confused that it had gone in. I think he's the only person in the world that thinks that the keeper should have done better with that. I see it as one of those where I don't really know how the keeper can possibly save it, given that it's not actually on target until the very last second. The keeper's hardly going to be diving outside of the far post.
Yeah, it'd be really nice if Reece James does become a proper viable option for us again, because we've kind of long since written him off, haven't we? In terms of his injury record, and he's just not been able to have a sustained period of fitness for 2.5 years now, really. And yeah, he went into the tournament in 2021 as a really strong option for England, and we just haven't really seen him at all since. And we were talking, weren't we, a few weeks ago before Tuchel's squad was announced, and sort of forecasting that Trent Alexander-Arnold is finally going to put the right back debate to bed, and he's just going to be the man. And that could very well still be the most likely outcome. But if James can stay fit and for a length of time, clearly he's got a real chance, because obviously Tuchel likes him. He was the only player before the first game that Tuchel referred to more than once using his nickname, calling him Reece.
Reece.
I'm sure now that he's had a week with the players, he's probably got pet names for all of them. But clearly there's some affection there. And yeah, I mean, it's all good. It's great if he can stay fit. And I think, as Mataface was saying on commentary, he's played central midfield a little bit for Chelsea in his recent sort of comeback from injury. If Tuchel's going to have fullbacks that come inside and occupy central areas, he can obviously do that as well.
Yeah. He it's funny you bring up that discussion about Trent from the other day, because it shows how fickle I can be, in that because Trent's been out of sight, out of mind in this camp, and because Reece James has done what he's done tonight, I'm guilty of being like, brilliant, if we can just keep James fit, he's perfectly, he can perfectly easily be England's right back at a World Cup, no issues there. Same with Ben White, he might have been part of this camp, he might have performed quite well, and we might have been saying the same things about him. But I mean, James is the, football cliches alert, he is the number one at the moment, probably, in the English game for the line, no doubting his qualities, but if he can just stay fit, because there is literally no doubting his quality. His crossing is brilliant. He actually early in the game did one of the worst crosses I think I've ever seen him put in. Very rare that he doesn't get his technique right, but then started delivering some fire from out wide. Scored the incredible set piece goal and takes good corners too when needed. And defensively, he is strong physically, he's sturdy, he enjoys putting himself up about a bit.
Smashed into one of their players tonight, didn't he?
He almost murdered a Latvian right in front of Tuchel.
The reaction from Tuchel was great. It really was great.
And yeah, I didn't have a particular issue about his no celebration, but I'm sure that wound a few people up. I did notice that his Twitter bio is slow and steady wins the race. So maybe he just sees it as like, the race has barely begun. But it was, one of the best free kick goals that England have probably ever scored, Dave. I mean, it will take something absolutely astounding to dislodge David Beckham 2001 from the top of that list. But when we were thinking about other quality free kicks, the stat came out that was the first England defender to score a free kick for England at Wembley since Stuart Pearce. And 1993 that was a good year for free kick goals for England. John Barnes scored a nice one as well within 6 months of that. 2001 was a good year. We had Beckham's, but also Teddy Sheringham scored one against Mexico, which was very nice. I saw a video of Joe Cole, which really made me very nostalgic. Joe Cole wearing number 17 with his shirt untucked. That quite iconic 03-04 Umbro kit, smashing in a free kick. Can't remember who that was against. And Eric Dyer, 2016, springs to mind as well.
Against Russia. Yeah, there's been some good ones, but it's always hard when you have these discussions about what's the best goal, which, we're doing that on the fourth or fifth episode of the England pod. It's hard to separate them from the context. Obviously, Beckham's it's an unbelievable strike, but it's obviously got the context as well. But that Stuart Pearce one, if it is the Stuart Pearce one, the same one, I'm not quite sure whether he might have scored another one in that period as well. But perhaps we can post this on our socials. There's an amazing goal that he scores against Poland at Wembley in 1993 in that doomed USA 94 qualifying campaign, and it's featured in the Impossible Job documentary. And there's Graham Taylor and Gaza and some of the players practicing their set pieces, and Taylor's saying, I don't mind one touch, I don't mind you taking one touch, and Gaza's sort of saying, I'll hit it, I'll set it, and Piercy comes around the back and can just come in this side and get it round on the angle, and then it cuts to the match, and they do it exactly as they said on the training pitch. And Taylor's expression in the stands, he just does a little point to, a chuffed little expression on his face, a little point to Gaza or to Stuart Pearce. It's lovely. It's a lovely moment.
Graham Taylor, football genius?
Of course.
David, 0-0, we had a scare. We haven't had too many of them. We've only faced 6 shots in the 2 games under Tuchel so far. I think only 2 of them have been inside the box. But should have been 1 down. There's no doubt about it.
definitely. The Latvia striker, just when presented with an open goal, albeit at a tight angle, he just rushes it so much, doesn't he? You just take a touch and just roll that in. I mean, even on his first touch, really, you can just sort of roll that one in. But it was one of those moments where it's not the sort of thing where you go, Mark Gahey, he made a mistake, or that means he won't start the next game. Like it's one of those things. It happens, right? And especially in matches maybe where your concentration as a defender perhaps is not being tested in the way that it would do in a more normal sort of match. But when the ball was knocked through and Gahey was kind of running back with the defender, and Pickford came out to the edge of the area to try and get the ball, for a second I was like, I'm not sure Pickford's got enough space to pick this up here. And I think that maybe Gahey, that's the sort of thing he'd be thinking as well, like, oh God, is he going to get there? I don't know. But it also looked like maybe he was pushed, kind of nudged into the path of the ball by the attacker. I don't think he tried to play the ball. I think he just sort of
bounced off his standing foot,
yeah,
I think. Yeah,
exactly. So it was a bit of a mess up between the two of them, but thankfully it didn't really matter. In a way, though, would have been sort of more interesting if they'd scored it, like for the game, and just for Tuchel to be one down and just see how he would have reacted to that and how the players would have reacted to that. Might have been good if they had popped it in.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had, on a similar note, I had a thought that perhaps surprised me, given that I'm an England fan. I just want England to win. But when there was a question mark about a penalty in the first half with the keeper sort of smashing into Bowen, I did have a thought, because it was 0-0, wasn't it, at the time?
It was, yeah.
I was like, I don't really want this to be given and for Kane to stick it away and for England to go ahead from the spot for a penalty that they haven't particularly earned necessarily, because I didn't think, I wanted to see how we would do it the hard way. It turns out that's with a 35-yard free kick into the top corner, but I definitely know what you mean about it. It would have been interesting to have a scenario where England have something go against them, but not yet to be, really. Still without conceding under Tuchel, and tougher tests to come. I thought Bellingham probably should have been sent off for what I felt was one of those tackles that makes you wince in real time. Then you think, you know what, I'm willing to watch the replay, and if he's just won the ball cleanly, that's okay. It wasn't necessarily endangering the opponent. And then actually it's that trailing leg, isn't it? Not the one that actually makes the tackle, but the one coming in from behind that connects with the ankle of the opponent in a way that it's just very dangerous, and you often see quite nasty injuries happening. So I thought Bellingham got away with that, and Tuchel clearly agreed as he whipped him off pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, he said afterwards in the interview that we got lucky there, but he also said he didn't think the first challenge was a yellow card. So whatever. But it was interesting that he talked a little bit about Bellingham after the first game needing to be a bit more disciplined and controlled, maybe. And obviously there was the situation earlier in the season which caused much debate and forensic examination in Spain, where Bellingham swore at the ref, or did he swear at the ref? Was he just swearing generally, as was his defence? So he's definitely got. He's a bit of a hothead, isn't he? In a way, and most of the time, certainly from what we've seen for England, that kind of transpires in a positive way. But I wouldn't, as much as I said the other day that he's the sort of guy that you can just see playing in a World Cup winning team and winning the player of the tournament and being the centrepiece. I also can definitely see him getting sent off in a high profile match for England. Yeah. I can just see it happening, maybe. But
I think a lot of the way that he carries himself is something that you see reflected in other players of that world-class stature, across the game. I'm thinking of Cristiano Ronaldo, thinking of Mbappe in a way. Mbappe maybe less of a hothead, less likely to get entangled with an opposition player, but he's still got it in him to be quite difficult for his own teammates as much as anything else. Yeah. So, I think it probably slightly comes with the territory. Only Messi, with everything else, kind of stands out as just not being normal on that front. One thing I've noticed is, and again, small sample size, could end up being nothing, we've had really strong periods between the 20th minute and half time in both games, essentially the second half of the first half. Both times we've started with a lot of intent, but with not a lot to show for it in terms of shots or chances, and it's been 0-0 around this time. and then obviously we've scored in both games around in this portion, but then got much stronger after the goal as well. I just wonder if the intensity with which we're trying to play in possession, even when it's not working and it's frustrating, is probably grinding down the opposition. And the longer a half goes on, the more difficult it is, for example, for Latvia's fullbacks tonight to stay with the wingers, which I thought their fullbacks did really well for like 15 minutes. And then after that, they were beaten pretty much every time.
Yeah, they looked quite hapless, didn't they, defensively? And they're probably quite pleased they've gotten away with a 3-0 tonight, because there were a lot of shots tonight, but a lot of them were poor quality shots from England. Sort of snatched half efforts. But I think Rodgers should probably score in the second half when he comes in. He got sort of shifted out to the right a little bit, didn't he, after some of the subs? And Tuchel was saying as well after the match that he thought he played better once he was coming in from the wide areas rather than being in the middle of the pitch to start with. And I think he probably should score. He makes space for himself. He drives at the box, and it sort of opens up for him quite nicely. And he just hits it half a yard wide when he can just plant it in the corner. And he had a couple of other moments where it nearly dropped to him. Just nearly dropped to him, but it didn't quite do. But I think he can be pretty pleased. ITV went quite big on him before the game with a big sort of Gabriel Clark package, which is definitely better than Gabriel Clark's post-match interviews. He's much more suited to the considered piece, I think, than in the moment with some of these young lads. And it was a nice piece, actually. I thought it was interesting to hear Rodgers talk about, you're like this, talk about his experience of having to play for Lincoln and having to play for Middlesbrough and dropping out of the Man City Academy and learning how to play men's football, and the fact that at one stage him and Bellingham were sort of level pegging coming up through the youth ranks, and maybe people thought Rodgers would be the one that made the impact earlier than Bellingham did. But he was quite honest and direct, actually, in the interview, which is sometimes quite rare, especially for players on international duty for England, where they do, even though they've given freedom, they still tend to be a little bit on their guard, I think, at times.
He's got a great character.
Yeah.
There was a video, I'm annoyed, I can't remember the exact details. There was something that went viral a month or two ago where he's just doing a football quiz about, I think, noughties football, so like the stuff that he would have been obsessed with as a kid. And it was just really cool to see him, as you say, almost like unfiltered and not worrying about how he comes across, just showing how much he loved that era and like taking the quiz really seriously, which I loved.
I was thinking about this towards the end of the game, in that how would he be thinking? So he's come off the pitch tonight. He's made his first start for England. He's played well. He is in the running for man of the match, certainly by the FA's official vote. He's one of the 4 options you can choose to vote for man of the match. Maybe he should have scored, but he's probably pretty pleased with his performance. But they're all looking ahead to the World Cup, and they're all thinking, I want to be in this team. How can I be in this team? How can I be in the squad? Like, it's different if you're Foden, if you're Bellingham, and if you're Saka. You're probably quite confident, even though Foden maybe isn't sure if he's going to get in the team, but you're quite confident that you're going to be there and a central part of it. But if you're an Eze, or if you're a Morgan Gibbs-White, like, how nervous and anxious do you think they get about being an England player? Because I remember a few months back I heard Paul Merson, I think it was on the Socially Distant Sports Bar, they were playing a clip of Paul Merson in an interview, which was really interesting, and Paul Merson was talking about how he felt when he played for England, in that he would just overthink stuff or take an extra touch because he was so worried about trying to make an impact for England that you just don't have that same level of relaxation and freedom that you do when you're playing for your club team week in, week out. And we talk a lot about the positives of having a big group of really talented players, and obviously that is, in the main, that's a great thing. But I wonder whether it inhibits some of these players, because there's so many of them vying for the spots. I wonder how it makes them feel when they're on the fringes.
I agree. I'm hopeful that the way that Tuchel is demanding that they play without inhibitions, that demanding that they try things on the ball, particularly those attacking players who are meant to do that, who are good at doing that. I'm really hopeful that if he keeps hammering home the message, if he keeps making it clear that he will only play players willing to do that, then it will unlock our attack, and it hopefully will, allow us to see even more moments of individual quality that, you know, we all think we've got some of the most talented attacking players in the world. And I'm really hopeful that his style of management might actually coax some of those attacking players to, you know, maybe feel a bit more comfortable, a bit more empowered to do that. I guess we'll see. Rodgers is certainly an exciting player to watch when he's in full flow. He was pretty quiet early in the game. I don't think it was an easy role for him. I don't think it was easy for him to find a lot of space. You know, he's playing in a dual number 10 role with Bellingham, who's like the guy who's demanding the ball the whole time and playing second fiddle in a way. But, you know, he ends up completing 6 dribbles out of 7, some really nice moments where he receives the ball and he suddenly slips away from someone. He's got that nice mixture of, like, he's got the kind of agility and balance of a smaller, sharper player, but he's quite a big guy and he's got quite good upper body strength, good speed. So lots to like there, I think. And, you know, absolutely not a game where he dominated. I don't think he left a huge imprint on it, but certainly enough to be quite encouraged. And he was involved in the second goal, which was a really nice team goal.
James, nice little pass from him.
James played the pass to Rashford, who'd galloped down the right wing, having switched sides. Rashford then found Rodgers, who found the even more galloping Declan Rice off the leash, released from the number 6 role, the deep midfield role, and for this moment at least, making that late run into the box that we want to see more of, because Rice inside the box is a real danger, and he fizzed it across for Kane to tap in.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a nice goal, nice move. Thinking about the third goal, I think it was kind of going back to what I was just saying. Quite important that Eze came on and did something, because to this point, I know he was a sort of surprise inclusion in the Euro squad, and he had a few moments where he was in those friendlies before the Euros, and in some matches in the tournament, he was getting on the ball and dribbling, but without necessarily impacting the game massively in terms of outcome. Whereas I think he's definitely the sort of player that when he gets his moments, he's going to need to, can he get an assist? Can he make a key pass? Can he, as he did today, make space for a shot? And look, it's gone in off a massive deflection in the end, but it's his goal. And that just stakes his claim that little bit for next time Tuchel's looking at the squad. You would think, providing his form for Palace holds up. But again, we don't know yet, Tuchel's second squad, how much club form's going to come into the reckoning. But you would think that if he is deciding between the likes of Gibbs-White and Eze, for example, maybe that's the sort of thing that is the difference between you making a squad and not.
Yeah, for sure. You can't give everyone minutes. I'm sad we didn't see Gibbs-White at all, even though he wasn't initially included in the squad. I think I made my thoughts clear on the day of the squad selection that, you know, even though people might have not have thought it was an important selection dilemma, I felt that Gibbs-White had probably done more this season to earn a spot over Eze. But instead, you know, we finished the international break with Ebery having had his big moment and Gibbs-White having to watch from the stands, albeit getting a lot of praise from Tuchel for the way he's carried himself since he's arrived. Eze's first England goal, the first Crystal Palace player to score for England since 1976, which I love. This is a guy who we covered at the start of his career on NTT20 Pod. It's just been a joy to watch and follow. A joyous guy, a joyous footballer in full flow, as we saw with the way that he dances in the lead up to his goal, and someone as well that, you know, it's really important to me to tell people's stories, and I think most England players' stories are well known, but even so, I think it's good to think about where guys have come from. And in Eze's case, he was released by 4 separate clubs before he turned 18, including Millwall in 2016, who must really regret that because QPR picked him up, went on loan to Wickham in League Two, and the rest is history, basically. Now an England goal scorer. And there's Harry Kane on the other end of the spectrum with 70 England goals now. 18 more than anyone else ever. And Charlie, who's the magnificent man that runs our social channels, digging out the stat that he's now scored more goals for England than Alan Shearer and Michael Owen combined.
Nice.
Pretty classic Harry Kane camp, this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, today's goal was a tap in as easy as they come, but the goal the other night was a nice goal, good centre forwards goal. But yeah, he will probably get to, by the end of this qualifying campaign, how many more matches have we got, including also a friendly with Wales? How many we got?
8 and 2 friendlies.
Right, so 10 more before the World Cup or on the books. So across those 10, how close do you think he can get to the 100? He's not going to get 20, but, not going to get 30 more, is he? But I saw Declan Rice talking up his potential to get 100 goals for England the other day before he retires, and I think that's achievable for sure. So I reckon he might get into I reckon he's probably pushing 80, like maybe get 81, 82 perhaps
Yeah, I mean,
by the end of the World Cup, he's probably in the 80s. I'd say
30 more. My estimate is that he scores about 3 in 4, which works quite well for this calculation, which is helpful. I'm not great at maths. So 40 games to score 30 more goals to get him to 100. Does he have 40 more England games? Like that's, I mean,
well, I think if this campaign, then the World Cup, he probably sticks around for the home Euros at least in 2028. With all those qualifying matches in Nations League games, we've got a chance now because we're now back in the top tier of non-major tournament men's international football in the Nations League. We could get to the finals of the Nations League in summer 2027, which would give him a couple more games to get the tally up. So
I'm going to be banging on about the alchemy of the front line for so long. So boring. Yeah, I got a bit sad last night, Sunday night. 4 insane Nations League games that took place without us. Felt like a party that we weren't invited to because we didn't earn it. But yeah, those were brilliant, and it's not as exciting as major tournaments, but it probably is more exciting than World Cup qualifiers, and we could have been and hopefully will be involved in the future. Dave, the England Pod's Campman Award is very important. For those who haven't listened to the England Pod previously, just talk us through it.
So it's very simple. The best player of the camp, the player who's had the best camp, as it were, and that's not necessarily like man of the match twice. I think it's about a bit more than that. It's about what sort of shape were they in going into the camp, how have they come out, what's their standing within the setup now. And my nomination on that basis would be Ezri Konsa, who I think played well again tonight and played really well against Albania, and has gone from, I don't think, being in many people's thoughts when it came to the top of the pecking order for our central defensive options to possibly edging out Gahey as the number 2 behind Stones.
Okay, yeah, I mean, Konsa's certainly on the podium for me.
Nearly scored a few times tonight as well. I think he had the Campman Award in the back of his mind because towards the end of the game when we were 3-0 up, he was still getting into the box sort of on second phases after set pieces, and there were two chances tonight that fell to him in the 6-yard box as well, so he could have capped it with a goal.
So he's on the podium for me. I think Bellingham's on the podium as well. The assist in the first game and his general performance, not his best performance tonight. He was probably in pole position, but doesn't win Campman for me. It's Miles Lewis-Skelly. For basically reasons of performance and also narrative, which, as you've explained, is part of this. You can kind of take it where you want. That's why we like the Campman Award, because it's not just man of the match times 2. But Miles Lewis-Skelly had never played a senior professional football match until this season. He's now an England goal scorer, youngest ever player to score on debut. He has played in a problem position for England at left back, looked very much at home, played in 2 separate roles within that in 2 different games and looked comfortable in both, scored a goal, won the free kick that Reece James scored, albeit slightly bought the free kick that Reece James scored. I felt a bit sorry for the defender, but that's not important for the Campman Award. I think for a number of reasons. This is going to be the international break that, aside from it being Tuchel's first games, I think from a player point of view, we'll surely look back on the emergence of Miles Lewis-Skelly.
Can't disagree.
Dave, before we say goodbye, like we did on Friday, we were both trying to keep an eye on the England under-21s game against Portugal. We were intrigued before this international break how they'd get on as they prepare for the 21s Euros in June, which we're excited about in Slovakia. They lost to France in a real ding-dong affair. and Carsley's young Lions had another one of those in Portugal tonight, but winning 4-2 on the right side of it this time, but pretty similar chaotic vibes.
Went 2-0 up this time, didn't they? Waneri and Hayden Hackney scoring the opening 2 goals. Who scored the other 2?
Omari Hutchinson headed home from a set piece for 3-1, and then Jayden Philogene on the break at the end with a very Jayden Philogene goal, the sort of thing we'd like to see Marcus Rashford doing for the seniors, running direct at the fullback, cutting in and finishing into the far post. Okay,
well that bodes well, I think, doesn't it, for an exciting, if indeed chaotic, series of matches in Slovakia in the summer.
Yeah, I would love to see us learn how to defend, because both games have been, I can't explain how ridiculous they've been. The perfect second screen game, because every time you look, someone's either wheeling away celebrating or looking in anguish because they've just missed a big chance. Pretty evenly split in both games as well. I definitely, and I talked about this in my youth team bulletin before the games, that I was a little concerned that the squad itself didn't, to my eyes, look like a very established under-21 squad, i.e. not a group of players that would have played a lot of football together, which is, it actually makes quite a big difference at these major under-21s tournaments. I've been to them in the past where, like, you get a team like Romania who don't have particularly big names, but what they do have is a group of 20-year-old players who've all played together since they were about 11 years old, so they know each other's games inside out, and that can be a big equaliser against more talented types. So for us, I'm a little concerned at how poor our shape is looking without the ball. Carsley does go for some quite complicated game plans, often playing players in positions where they, maybe don't play for their clubs. Tonight was, I think, a 3-4-2-1 sort of box midfield. Hinchelwood at right wing back, Illing Jr. at left wing back, Archie Gray, Cresswell and Branthwaite at the centre backs, Hackney and Bellingham in midfield, and then Elliott and Waneri and Hutchinson. So no recognised number 9. It's all pretty vibey, for want of a less annoying word, and it does make me pretty excited for the Euros.
Illing Jr., friend of the pod, I think we can say.
Absolutely. Big friend of the pod, Illing Jr. Head to our TikTok channel if you're not sure what Dave's referring to.
So this brings now to an end the first camp for Thomas Tuchel. Are you excited now after those 2 matches?
Yeah, I'm really excited. From a personal point of view, he has probably surpassed what I was hoping for. He has surpassed my expectations. I'm pretty obsessed with the way that he speaks every time he opens his mouth. I've said before, it really excites me. I love hearing a manager be so honest and direct when it comes to what he wants tactically. Be, challenging to the players rather than maybe mollycoddling them and always looking to defend them. Basically treating the press like he doesn't really give a shit what they think, which is scary, and we're not used to it. But I am excited about it, and he's got a glint in his eye. He's got a way about him that I really like. We've known since the start that there's a chance, and there's a probability that it ends in tears. It is more likely that we won't win the World Cup than we will win the World Cup. That's just how probability works and how the odds look. But I'm very excited about it. What about you?
Yeah, I am. I think I am excited because I was talking to some people the other day and they were asking me how it was like to see him in person when I went to the press conference. And I think some of the players have said this as well, but he does have an aura about him. Now that might at the moment be just sort of new broom, new guy in the room and us projecting a little bit of excitement onto him. But genuinely, I do feel that he has this presence. He's sure of himself. The way that he talks about football is so different to Southgate, and it's a lot more detailed in his tactical observations, even in just short post-match interviews than we were used to getting. So I think it feels fresh. I do. Even though there was a 2-0 and a 3-0 in your first 2 games against Albania and Latvia, pretty much par for the course in terms of England World Cup qualifying sort of results. But it did feel like there were some interesting things going on the pitch. And when I asked him that question, well, one of the questions the other day, there was a little moment where Because when you're at these press conferences, you get given a microphone, and after you've answered your second question, your final question, you're kind of given a bit of a nod into who you've got to pass the microphone to next. I had to pass it to Henry Winter, and I was kind of reaching over to give the microphone to Henry Winter, but Henry hadn't realised that where I was. So I was there was about 5 seconds of like me sort of panicking a little bit, having this microphone and thinking I needed to pass the baton on quickly, and then I clicked back into thinking, oh shit, Tuchel's answering my question here and he's staring right at me. And I felt like a bit rude, as if I wasn't acknowledging him. So I looked at him and he just held my gaze. And so it made me realise that I'm probably not someone that really makes a lot of eye contact probably in conversation. I probably should do it more. But it really made me sit up and go, oh God, he's staring right into my eyes and he's answering this question here. And that was a strange moment for me. But I just think the way he's dealt with the media has been really impressive, and I just think I can just imagine him talking to the players in a way that we obviously, which would be a level up from that as well, behind closed doors. I just think we are onto something here, and as you said, more likely on balance that we don't win the World Cup just on the law of averages, but I think we've given ourselves a hell of a chance with this guy in charge, and I think we should all allow ourselves to be excited about that.
Couldn't agree more. I think from our point of view as well, we can't ignore the fact that it's just been an incredibly exciting couple of weeks. The fact that you're on the pod telling an anecdote about asking a question to Tommy Tactics just reflects what an amazing time we've had. We're really grateful to everyone that's shown quite a lot of support. Certainly everyone listening to the pod and interacting with us on socials, but also loads of people I think that we've all met and chatted to in the flesh over the last couple of weeks. A lot of the people involved in England media circles as well have been really welcoming and really great. And I must admit, of all the slightly surreal but amazing moments of the last couple of weeks, you asking a question to Thomas Tuchel that got 1 million views on our Twitter account is a reminder that we have a place, and we're really excited to add ourselves to the England media diet. We hope that those of you who are listening and watching are enjoying what we're offering, both on the pod and on socials as well. We're trying lots of different stuff, and this is not the final format. It's not our final form. So please do let us know, what you want to see and hear more of. But yeah, just know from our point of view, the appetite for it is massive. We're probably, I would say, more energised than even we were in the planning stage and the pre-launch stage.
Even if it doesn't sound like it with your voice.
My voice is completely gone. And may come back for the next set of internationals. But let's say goodbye for now. And we will be back again soon on the pod feed. So don't switch us off. Don't forget about us. There'll be plenty to keep you going on the England pod over the next few weeks and months. Go well.